You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks podcast. We are in another new location. I have been doing more on the road podcast. This time, it is another gym. It's funny. I'll get to that in a second. But without further ado, Nick Showman, welcome to the Roughnecks podcast. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I know we've talked about this for a few months, and between our schedules and my newborn, we have not matched up very well. So this worked out.
Yeah, it's funny because all of the traveling podcasts, anytime I've gone and set up somewhere else, it's been 3 times now, and every time it's been a gym. It's always gyms that I go to. For some reason, that's just like the one spot. Usually I do a lot in my house, and then I do a lot virtually as well. Yeah. But the ones I travel to, like when they bring it up, they're like, you want to come to me? And I'm like, well, yeah, actually, I feel like and I kind of like doing it in the gym setting. It's just kind of different. And if you're recording with a gym owner, it kind of makes sense because you kind of get to showcase the space a little bit and stuff like that. Yeah,
as my sister's out there deadlifting.
Hey, you always got to put in the work. Just because there's a podcast going on doesn't mean it ends.
Yeah.
But, yeah, kind of just to kick this episode off, I like to allow the guests to kind of give a background on themselves. So kind of tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Nick Showman. I own Showtime Strength and Performance. So we're here in Newark. I opened Showtime in 2013. Before that, I worked at another private facility and coached at Denison University under Mark Watts. Did sort of those two for about three and a half years, I think. And also my first venture into the business world was I actually ran a drug-tested bodybuilding organization.
Okay.
Which I, so I started that when I was so young. I think a lot of people don't even realize it now because I've been in that world for a while. I started doing that when I was 20, and I actually did that. I took over that before I'd ever been to a bodybuilding show. So the first bodybuilding show I'd ever gone to, or no, I lied. I competed in my first show. So in 2008, I competed in a show that Corey Gregory ran here in Heath. And then I did the following one in the spring. And then that's when he was starting Muscle Farm. And we were working out one day. I was like, hey, man, I know you're busy. Like, I'd like to help out with the bodybuilding show if I could, whatever. And at that time I was just doing, any volunteer work to get anything I could do to be around fitness and around training. Like, that's what I was doing. Like, I would train my brother and now brother-in-law, like at my brother's house, like, with a Swiss ball and a couple dumbbells and a couple bands, like I bought from Barry's Barbell back when they were open. And anything I could do, anybody I could write a workout for, that's what I was doing. And Corey just looked at me. He was traveling a lot, trying to get Muscle Farm really off the ground. And he just said, hey, man, like, if you find a place to have it, like, we'll split the first show 50-50. Then it's yours from there. I'm like, all right, cool. And I was working at Denison. I was talking to Coach Watts about it. And he was like, we have it at the Slater Auditorium. I was like, I don't know where that's at. Because we, the intern volunteer coaches, we just stayed down in the weight room. Mm-hmm. And every now and then the football coach, Jack Hayden, would be like, hey, here's a lunch pass. Like, go up to the cafeteria. And that was the extent of us, like, going up on the hill. And so we ended up having that first show. Watts booked the venue under his faculty name, whatever. Yeah. And ran that show. I think we had 18 competitors, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. But yeah, I thought it was great and all that. And then I ended up running it for, I think I did 10 shows, 5 years maybe. So we do a fall and a spring show, and we ended up having it at OSU Newark in the Reese Center. That's where we pretty much had it after that. And our biggest show was 108 competitors, 109 without. So there's like multiple divisions and people could do crossovers, and that 108, 109, whatever it was just the like number of entries.
Okay.
man, I don't know how many spectators we had. I know that the auditorium, like there was people sitting on top of people in the auditorium, and like people were blocking fire exits, and the security guards came down and like threatened to shut the show down and stuff. And I was like, oh shit. So that was like my first venture into anything. That was the first time I'd ever put my name to anything. And it was honestly the best experience. I was like, dude, this is awesome. Like bodybuilding was never my passion, and I really realized that. I met one of my best friends through that show, Kyle Harris. Me and him still talk pretty much every day. Just one of the best people I've ever met. And he did my bodybuilding prep. I was like, I want to do a show, and I'd never had anybody like really help me get ready, so he did. And we became friends through that, and he ended up helping me run the bodybuilding organization. Like, he was sort of my go-to guy. And that third show is when I realized, like, I don't like this. Like, I just remember being up on stage, and I was like, this isn't, you get into something, you think, like, this is what I want to do. And then, like, the more I got into it, I realized, like, I liked the training. I liked the nutrition challenge. When it got more, like, what ended up happening was I went to a small show. There was like 12 people, and within 15 minutes of being there, I was like, I'm going to get second place overall. And the way bodybuilding shows work, they're all day. And there was this older guy, and he was just shredded, like just shredded. And I'm like, sweet, I'm going to get second place to this guy. So you spend all day just knowing
that what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's nothing you could do to change the outcome.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So that, I was like, this is not my jam. Like, I want something I can do day of to change this outcome. And I was always a strength guy. Like, always wanted to push the limits. Bodybuilding was just more accessible, I guess, because that's what the local people did. But yeah, and like I said, I was coaching at Denison. I'm trying to think I'm all over the place right now.
That's how I feel a lot of people are anyway. That's like, I believe you made a post on Instagram one time, and you said not all successes or something are linear. So like, that's how,
nothing's
like,
linear.
I mean, everything, life is just up and down all the time. So
yeah.
It just constantly changes.
Yeah. And so I was at the, that period of my life, like, I was running the bodybuilding show, working at the speed and agility school, and still doing coaching at Denison here and there. And like, Coach Watts got it. He helped me get the job at the first place, and he was like, just help out when you can. And it got to the point where I really liked Coach Galoni, and he wanted the basketball team to train at like 5 or 5:30 in the morning. And by default, I lived the closest to Denison. So Watts was like, I think he had 1 or 2 newborns at the time, and he's like, dude, I'm not coming in just for that. And I'm like, all right. So I covered basketball, and that was like my last bit of coaching. And then what ended up happening was, during that time, my wife and I started dating, got engaged, and then she got a job and a residency out in California. Okay. And it just got to the point where I was like, doing the bodybuilding show thing, it was good. Again, like, I was always a strength guy. Like, I was always reading. When I found EliteFTS.com that Dave Tate owns, I remember going to college and skipping classes just so I could sit in the library, because we had free printing. Yeah. So I, like, all the books behind you, all the binders, I was just printing off anything, every article, and I just like cover pen, like, organize them, like, this squat training, bench training, deadlift training, like all the Westside articles. Like, I remember Coach Watts gave us like his password to like his Google Drive at the time, which was just all these books, and I was like printing them all off at Columbus State, flunking my classes while like reading these Soviet manuals, reaching out to people that were like far beyond. I remember talking to Dave Tate for the first time in 2009, just being like, dude, will you talk to me about training? Like, I was the epitome of like, I'll just do whatever. Yeah. And I would just Facebook message people, like bodybuilding prep coaches, power lifters, strength coaches. Like, Anybody that would like open my message, be like, all right, man, like let's talk whenever you want to talk. Like, and it was just the bodybuilding show was getting me great exposure and opening me to a lot of gyms in the area. Like the lessons I had learned from that bodybuilding show, like I could never have learned that any other way. And I'll never forget, I was sitting at Columbus State and they were talking about like, you do your degree at Columbus State, and I really liked my time there. Almost all the classes I had were awesome, but we were doing like, you could do your degree here, finish up at Franklin or Capital or whatever, and then go get your personal training cert, and you know, then you could do this and like take these steps, and you could like get your foot in the door somewhere to start your fitness career. And after, like, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, man, what in the hell is going on? Like, because I'm running the bodybuilding show, and I was already talking to people like Corey with Muscle Farm, Cellucor, like all these supplement companies, House of Pain, which is a big apparel company back in the day, All American EFX, like any supplement company, like I was just on top of them, getting us product. Monster would send us like, I remember they loaded my entire car. Like I couldn't carry any more Monster in my car. Cellucor, they used to sell these like big stacks. It was like a fat burner, pre-workout, this, that. And the guy was like, how many do you want? I'm like, I don't know, dude, we're gonna have like 100 competitors. So he sent me like 10 stacks, like 20 tubs of pre-workout, like 1,000 samples of like 5 different products. Like Metrics, I remember, sent me like 120 boxes of bars.
Holy crap.
So there's like what, 12 bars in a box, and like just stuff like that. And I was just like, man, this seems, I get it. And I understand that education's important. Like there's times I wish I would have finished it, but I'm like, I'm doing the thing that they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so my wife's at the time, fiance's in California. I could tell, the bodybuilding show stuff was going good. And again, I'm not a speed and agility guy. Like we do it, we know it, but like I wanted to teach kids to lift weights. To me, getting stronger is the most transformational thing anybody can do in their life, whether they're 10 years old, 70 years old, and when I started personal training, like I always joke with people is, I trained all the people no one else wanted to train. And that sounds really bad. But I really just picked up the clients that like the other trainers at the place I was working at didn't want to train. And I was cool with it. Like, my first real client was I think he was 70 at the time. And I just started training him on Saturdays because the guy he was working with didn't want to come in on Saturdays. So I trained him once a week. And like, there was no plan. The other trainer didn't tell me like, this is what he's doing. Like, so every Saturday I'm like, I've never trained a 70-year-old. Like, and he ended up training with me 3 days a week for 9 years.
Wow.
And he was like one of the first people I told that I was going to propose to my wife. And I got done training people that night because he was like a safe one. I could like pitch the idea. I might do this, but you don't know anybody I know. Like you're not going to tell anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had a voicemail on my phone from his wife, and his wife had worked for State Farm, and through that, and she was like specialized in jewelry claims. She's like, listen, get a hold of me. I'll take you to my jeweler. Like, don't go buy a ring at this place or that place. Like, and I'm like, what in the hell? And I went and picked her up on like a Tuesday. We go to downtown Columbus, and like, you gotta be buzzed in, and it's like by appointment only. I'm like, what? Like, I can't do this. And she's like, she gets a folder out, and she's like, what size ring, what cut, I'm like, I don't know. But that's, she ended up helping me. Like, they built her ring. I'm like, yeah, I think that would be good. I had another kid. He still trains here, Stout. He came to me, no confidence, a little chubby. I've trained him and his family. You're talking 15 years now. Another kid who a little clumsy. Like, those were the people I trained. And then, I started working with Shelby, and they were like, hey, this girl's pretty good at softball, but she was hurt at the time. She couldn't pick up a softball. I'm like, okay. And I just got her stronger. And then that's how we got tied into the softball stuff. But all these things were coming up, and I'm like, dude, I can't just keep doing speed and agility. Like, we gotta lift weights. And I just could tell that like things were not coming to an end. Just like, I was 23, 24 at the time. Like, what do I want and what do they want? And it wasn't matching up. And I remember going out to California, and I told my wife, like, okay, I have like 3 options. And this is how I see my whole life. Like, I have 3 options. We're going to partner up with the PT clinic that you're working at and do like a sports performance PT clinic. I'm going to buy the facility I'm working at, which at the time, like, I had no idea how to evaluate a business. I was just like, yeah, I'll just buy it.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense. And then, or I'll just come back and just open my own thing. And like, to me, it was clear as day. Like, I don't know why. I was like, no, it will work. And ignorantly, like, you write numbers on paper and you're like, yeah, there's no more cost. This is all my cost. This is everything. And if I can get to this point, then I'm set for life. And, just an FYI, it's never like napkin math will get you in so much trouble. So we met with her PT clinic, and they were all on board. Like, they were like, this is exactly the direction we want to go. Like, they won a bunch of awards for like fastest growing PT clinic in California, like in exceptional service, all this stuff. Like, and they're like, we're like 3 to 5 years from this project. I'm like, dude, I'm like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks is like my max time limit. And they're like, oh, we're just not there. It's like, all right, that's cool. No biggie. Come back, met with my old bosses. And I was like, hey, are you guys interested in selling the business? They're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. And then one of the athletes that was at Denison was like, oh, man, my family has a building that's been for rent. And like, dude, it's perfect. Da-da-da. Went and looked at it, like, sweet. Yeah, let's do it. And this was like a learning lesson that not many people realize. Coach Watts still makes fun of me because, and I'm a big believer that everything timing wise happens. And there's things that we can't control. And like stuff that's so far beyond control. Like when I was at that private facility, I built like just such a solid base of clients that like everyone was training 2, 3, 4 days a week with me. And like the part of the problem became like I had so many one-on-one clients, and like we were also doing group classes, and like I couldn't always accommodate my schedule. You know what I mean? Like, because I was running probably close to 20 one-on-one sessions a week. Plus they were like, we need you to run like 10 group sessions a week. I'm like, dude, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want me to do? And I was confident that like, I knew I knew wherever I went outside California, my clients would train with me. It was not whatever name was on the building. Like those were like my people, like, and not, if they stayed, they stayed. I don't own people. But I was like, I'm pretty confident, like these people really like me, and like I could train them in a park, and I think they would be down with that. And, Coach Watts, I think he had just had his second kid, and like he was just like, I can't coach college football anymore, because he was the defensive coordinator at Denison, plus he had created a strength conditioning program that nobody asked for, so he's now training like all varsity sports, and that's not his job, but like all the varsity sports at Denison expect it, and he's doing it. So it's like, when he's in the weight room, the football coach is unhappy. When he's on the football field, all the other coaches are happy. And, his wife's at home with 2 newborn kids. Like, there's things I get now. And he left and went to Elite FTS. And he was just like, hey, man, I have all this equipment at Denison that's not Denison's equipment. It's like Mark Watts' equipment. He's like, if you want it, it's yours. And I'm like, dude, sweet. So, when we opened, it was funny. I had like all the non-essential equipment. I did have hex bars, which were clutch, but like I had like a safety bar, I had a buffalo bar, I had like a rackable camber bar. Like I had all the, the first day I trained people at that building, the girl and her dad came in. He's like, "You got a place to sit?" I'm like, doesn't look like it. And like I'm training my 72-year-old client at the time, and like we didn't have kettlebells, we didn't have med balls, and I was like, "Oh, you're gonna squat. We don't have a way for you to like, okay, just pick up this plate." Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it was just very, I don't want to say it was a knee jerk reaction, but the whole process of me, like, here's my idea. Here's what I'm going to do. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like, it was very fast. And, like, I just looked at it as like, everything's working. And, my wife now will still kick me in the shin because she's like, let's just like do this long distance thing, like no drastic changes. And then like a month and a half later, I'm like, all right, I'm starting a business. And she'll never let me live that down. And it's worked out now. And it's like funny to joke about now. And I'll never forget her asking me, she's like, how will you know if it's working? I said, listen, I really don't. I will just assume if I have a positive bank account by the end of year one, like it's going to go. I don't know what, if I have $1 in the positive, it's fine. And, I remember Shelby heard from someone else that I was leaving. She was in Colorado, I think. And she called me so mad. Like, you're not training people anymore? I was like, yes, I'm training people. Like, I'm moving down the street. Okay. Like, and that was it. Like, but then the funny story about that is like I left. I didn't really tell anyone outside my immediate client base. And I told Watts, like, dude, you changed my life. Like, I'm going to do my first order of equipment from Elite FTS. And I took all the money that I had at the time and got equipment. And I'd been buying equipment here and there. Like, I bought some dumbbells and stuff. And Elite posted on their Facebook, like, be on the lookout for Showtime. Like, they came out and helped me install the equipment and stuff. That was a Friday evening. Monday morning, the landlord texted me and was like, I was only renting like part of the building. Mm-hmm. And he's like, dude, nobody wants this building. I'm like, all right, cool. It's in the hood. Like, I can see why nobody would want it. He texted me Monday, hey man, we need to talk. I'm like, oh my gosh. And, he was like, hey, somebody wants to rent the whole building. I'd put like, I forget how much money. Like, I was like, the biggest expense to me at the time was my rent. So I paid like 5 or 6 months of rent up front for this like partial space of a building. And he's like, there's a couple ways you can do it. Like, you can stay here at full rate of the whole building, which would have been like a month and a half, and then leave. Or you can pay full rate and stay. But like, these people want the whole building. I'm like, sweet. So like my dream like almost got crushed, 10 days into it. And I'm like, I remember calling my wife like, dude, I might just be eating like 15 grand of equipment and, sell it, and look, gave it a shot and move out to Cali. And somebody came by, another trainer in there. He's like, dude, this place is great. I was like, I remember chucking like a 45-pound plate like across, like I was just like, I saw everything just like being pulled away. And he's like, whoa, did you check these buildings like down off Mount Vernon Road? I'm like, no. I looked. I remember driving back here, but like there was still this used to be a tow garage, and there were still cars like in the parking lot and stuff, and it hadn't been cleared out. And then I drove all around Licking County that day, and I ended up driving back here. I was like, oh, looking in the windows, I'm like, dude, this could work. And I was like, how do I find who owns this? How do I get in? Like, and I met the landlord that day, and he's like, it's this much. I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I cannot afford that. Like, and my brother came and looked at it. He's like, I don't think you have a choice. Like, your choice, like, this is what you want and you need it. So like, stop messing around. So I did. And we moved the whole gym in like 6 hours, 7 hours, the whole gym. It's nothing like it is now. Like, and so that was like my first turbulence, like 10 days into business ownership, was like, oh my gosh. And anybody that starts a business, I spent every dollar I had to open this, and there was no, my safety net was just like, oh no, I'll go get a job like everyone else. And so that's how it started. But everything, like I said, just everything always worked out. And then that led me, from the bodybuilding show stuff, I had gotten pretty good at events, like putting events on, and I understood the structure. And we'd always run events at Denison. We'd do like strongman events and bench press for breast cancer, stuff like that. So like, I understood events, and I was like, okay, I want to powerlift. I can't justify buying powerlifting equipment with like personal training money. Mm-hmm. Like, my personal training clients are not powerlifters, but I want to get stronger. So I got a hold of Josh Guttridge. And Josh was a power lifter. He trained at Westside for like 15 years. He started helping me. I was like, dude, I want to get strong, and I want you to help me like run powerlifting meets. Because when I was out at old school, I remember watching them, and I did a couple of their meets. I was like, we can do this. And I was like, plus, if we get X number of entries, I can buy a competition bench. Then the next meet, I'll buy like these bars, and then like, I'll use the events to fund my hobbies essentially, like get the stuff in. And so we ran the first powerlifting meet here, and there was like, again, it was like 13 lifters, 14 lifters, something. Like, we're like, oh, this is awesome. And I remember like for that meet, like tore the whole gym apart, like thinking there was going to be like thousands of people here, and we probably could have just left the equipment like right where it was at. But we started running those meets, and then I think it was like the third or fourth meet we ran. This was wild. I got a call from Dave Hoff on a Friday night, and Dave Hoff's the strongest powerlifter to ever lift weights. Like, it's not even close. I think his total's like 3158. So between squat, bench, and deadlift, like a 1276 squat, 1041 bench, and a 815, 820 deadlift. He called me because he was the International Powerlifting Association chairman for the state of Ohio at the time. He's like, Nick Showman. I'm like, yes, who is this? And he's like, this is David Hoff. I'm like, what the, like, why is, at the time, I did not know who like, I knew who he was, but like, we did not.
Yeah, never actually had a conversation with him.
Like, we never crossed paths. Like, I knew him because he's on the magazine covers. Like, he's the strongest dude of all time. And he's like, hey, Westside Barbell is going to put some people in your competition. I'm like, what? And so they put some people in the meet, and he's like, here's our rules. I'm like, all right, gotcha. And he was like, who's judging your meet? And I told him, and we had a bunch of old Westside guys that trained with Josh judging the meet. So they came, and it was like wild. I'm like, oh my gosh, like Westside Barbell that I grew up with is like at our gym. And then they came to the next meet that we had, and I thanked Lou, like, thanks, man, for coming. And he's like, yeah, thanks for having the meet. And I did the next meet here. Like, I competed, ran it and competed. That was a last time.
It's so hard to do that.
And I was helping our clients in the meet, and I'll never do that again. But I deadlifted 600, and it was like deadlifting 135. I'm like, this is awesome. Then Josh took me to like 620 maybe, and like the bar didn't budge off the ground. I'm like, wow, that was heavy. And Josh is yelling at me. He's like, you got to try. I'm like, dude, I did. That's really heavy. And I remember I went up to Lou, and I'm like, because I noticed he was in the front row when I was lifting. And like, no pressure, but the guy that, the king of powerlifting is watching you deadlift. And I was like, do you have any, like, I don't know if you watch me, but like, man, I just tried deadlifting 620 and it didn't budge. And he's like, oh, you deadlift 700 right now. Just come up to Westside on Monday. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, this is cool. And then started going up there on Mondays, and was there 6 years. And then I stopped competing in 2020. And that's why I say, like, the timing of everything, and like, there's so much beyond our control. Like, I couldn't go to Westside and just be like, hey, I want to work out here. But I think there's also like, I've just been around so many awesome people. Like, I was saying about this last night, like, there's a saying, like, in your lifetime, you hope that there's like one person that changes your life. And I can think of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like six people that like literally shifted the trajectory of my entire life. Somebody I never talk about enough is Bill Sanders, and he was my middle school football coach. And he used to take people to the YMCA, and I knew that because I would see them when I was at the YMCA, and I was like, when I'm old enough, like, I'm gonna be in that group. And I conned him into it, and he would pick us up at Granville High School Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and he'd drive us to the YMCA, and he taught us how to squat, how to bench. We did deadlift a little bit, but we did power cleans, and like, it was, if nothing else, he taught me very basics and like the consistency of a routine. Like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you train like 3 days a week. Whatever the schedule is, but like, we didn't vary off that schedule. Josh Guttridge, Mark Watts, who gave me my first chance of coaching. Without that, like I always thought like strength conditioning, like training athletes was like bodybuilding with like hang cleans and stuff. So like, yeah, do some cleans, do some sprints, like, and then do your 5 sets of 10 on squat. Like you're an athlete. And he gave me that opportunity to coach, and like the people he put me in front of, it was like I could not believe it. Like we go to the national conference, and like there was always just, hey, this is so and so, this is the guy from Army, hey, this is so and so from Ohio State. Like the people he introduced us to, I'm like, dude, you know everybody. Like he introduced us to the head of the NSCA, the National Strength Conditioning Association. He's like, hey, this is Boyd Epley, and I forget the other guy's name. Like, whoa. Joe Ken, who I think he was at the Carolina Panthers at the time. Like we just sat down and he just like talked to us for an hour. I'm like, whoa, like you're in the NFL. Like, and I like just got my personal training cert. Like, so like that's a transformational person. Josh Guttridge, like I said, when he started helping me with powerlifting, I remember thinking like a 600-pound deadlift would be wild, and I was stuck at like 550 or something forever. Like that's insane. Man, he helped me for like 2 months, and that's when I pulled 600. I'm like, well, that was easy. And he's like, well, yeah, it should be 600 pounds. And like he was the first person that like really believed in me, and like, dude, that in an elite status. Like I always thought an elite status in powerlifting. So that's where like there's different classifications based on your squat, bench, and deadlift that build your total. And by weight class, there's different totals that get you different rankings. And I was like, nobody I was around at the time had an elite powerlifting total. And I think I got it in my second or third meet with Josh. Like It was just a complete like shift of like mentality. And I mean, when I was at Westside, I went from so what was happening was I was training at Westside on Mondays, and then I would train here Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And like we ended up having a group of people to train with. And we met one of my good buddies, Aaron Walzer. So I wore the bench shirt, the squat suit, anything that could make you a person lift one more pound. I would wear it. And then my buddy Aaron, who I met from one of the competitions here, he didn't wear anything. And it was great because we were at the same level of strength. Like our squats were the same. I think I had squatted like 770 and he squatted like 755 or something. So we were training partners. And man, you talk about two people that trained so hard, probably to a fault. Like all I wanted to do was beat him. And it took me like a year, and I remember beating him. He had like a tweaked hip at the time, or a tweaked back. And I beat him. I was like, fuck you. Like, I fucking beat your ass. And my wife was like, do you really want to like brag about beating somebody that's like not 100%? And I'll never forget, Josh was like, fuck him. Like, if he came to train, like, we're here to train. Like, that was, that's the stuff that was fun. But Josh took me from a 500-pound squatter to my best in my last meet was 942, and I just missed 1,003. Went from I had torn my pec tendon off benching by myself, and that was like 305, and then I ended up benching 700, and that was like just having somebody to believe in you just is like the most powerful thing that I think anybody could do. And then obviously like being at Westside, being with Lou, like, it's just so I've had so many exceptional experiences that most people couldn't pay for.
Right.
Like, there's a picture behind me of me, Lou, and Boris Shiko. Boris is the Russian national powerlifting coach. He came to Westside to meet Lou before he died. And like, we spent 4 hours just explaining how we train, and then they'd explain how they train. And I'm like, it's one of those moments like, dude, this is wild. Like another, when Corey was starting Muscle Farm, like I watched that supplement company get built up to, at the time, like sales wise, like they were one of the biggest companies, and seeing like sort of a behind the scenes of that. Like I got to meet Jenny Finch, picture somewhere. Oh, it's a big picture there. Like we had a softball clinic, and I think we ended up having like 180 girls sign up for that, and filled up the Mitchell Center at Denison. And so part of it is I've always been a very curious person. I've always just been like, how do you do this? Like, okay, like, like probably annoying. Like I remember I'd call Coach Watts and just be like, hey, if somebody's sprinting, like, what would you do here? And I just did that with everybody. Like I remember I'd ask Big Josh. I started filming all my sets of training. Like, hey, do you see this? And Tim Harold helped me a lot when I was getting started. And Tim was one of the biggest people I've ever seen. Like when he was competing, he was probably like 450 pounds, and now he's like 300 pounds and just like super jacked. But he would help me like see the little things that other people don't see. And like all those experiences, I think, made me a coach that sees things that other people don't see. When you're trying to, like, part of the job at Westside, so like there's lifters, but like part of your job as a lifter is to be a coach, to make people better than you. And they keep a record board. And like the goal is to break records need to be broken. And if you're not helping records get broken, or you're not breaking records, like you're gonna get kicked out. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And like when you're taking somebody from 100-pound squat to 200 pounds, it's not that hard. Like I've done it 10,000 times, like in a workout. When you're talking about taking somebody from 1,000-pound squat to 1,100, like it's okay. What is the one thing that they're missing? Yeah. Like, they're not weak. Like, right. They're squatting 1,000. Like, we had a girl here, Melissa. She started benching with us. I met her. She was training at Westside, and she had already gotten her name on the board in 2 weight classes, I think. But her bench was going nowhere. So Lou's like, why don't you go down to Showtime bench with those guys? And I'll never forget it. Damn COVID. It was like the first workout. Like I think the COVID, closed the gym down, and like we're in here benching, and I was like, we were prepping her to break a world record, I think at 123. I was like, all right, let's just take this just to see. And then once we reopen, 2 weeks later or whatever, we'll go find a meet and put you in and break the all-time world record. And she beat the world record by like 10 pounds. Wow. Yeah, she was 123. I think she benched 330 or 335 in here. Yeah. So that's a little bit of my long drawn out background. Powerlifting and training athletes. And something I really love now is like no athlete stays an athlete forever. Right. At some point, every athlete quits being an athlete, and that's I love helping people in that transition, and also just helping like 40-year-olds like that are like, I can't work out, I can't do this, and then showing them like I think strength is the most, like I said, strength is the most amazing thing, because it can, I've worked with Shelby, played a year of pro ball. I've worked with Matt Lamson, who played for the Columbus Crew. I just worked with Amr Desi. I worked with him 3.5 years. He's the wrestler for Team Canada. He wrestled, what was the last Olympics? Tokyo, and then the one before Paris was the last one, and then Tokyo was, so helped him get ready for 2 Olympics. Like, it's strength helped him. Strength to help that 70-year-old client that I was talking about. Joe, like when you got here, Joe was working with like a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old. Mm-hmm. It helps them, even if it's more confidence. Like I think it's just, the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life was teach people how to lift weights. And, for somebody that barely passed high school, like I wake up every day, I'm like, dude, I'm the luckiest person in the world, because I get to teach people to lift weights. And, I always say the day I won was the day, like, we got a gym like that. I never really thought that would happen. So here we are almost 12 years later, and we're busy all the time. And we, when we started, it was like, we really just need to train athletes. And now it's expanded to, we need to train athletes. We need to train adults. Like, we need everybody moving, and I've been making a big push. My parents are getting older, like, and I see it, I'm getting older. My siblings are getting older. Like, we need people that move more, that move better, that can help other people. So, yeah, that's it.
How did you kind of like, what drew your attention, like kind of going all the way back, what drew your attention to powerlifting in general? Like, were you always into training, or like kind of what sparked that interest to begin with?
Yeah, I started writing workouts for myself in 9th grade. So that would have been 2002. I started writing workouts and like convincing my mom like to buy me the whatever magazine, Muscular Development, Planet Muscle, I think it was called, like anything. And that's when like the internet was really cool, because like all this stuff started coming up online, and so I could go home and just start reading all this stuff. And what drew me to powerlifting was the biggest dudes, like just like that, like cartoon like looking characters, like just lifting weights that just seemed unrealistic. I was like, that's it. Like just always. And then when I remember watching Josh and his crew train, there used to be this small gym on Waterworks. Like if you like went straight through the woods, you could be there. It was tiny and it was a dump, and like all the equipment was old. And that's where they used to train. Like they got to where they were only going to West Side twice a week instead of 4 times. And then they had their own training group here in Newark. And I remember I was bodybuilding. I was getting ready for like my first show maybe. And there's a dividing wall, and behind the dividing wall was where they benched. And like, I just remember like, dude, these guys are crazy. Like this is, and I'll never forget it, because that was the first time I saw somebody hook bands on a bar. I was like, what is this? Like they got rubber bands on a bench bar? Like, I'm like posing in the mirror on the other side, and like they're screaming, and there's AC/DC just like blaring. Like it was like as hardcore as you could imagine training wise. I'm like, dude, this is freaking wild. And I remember the bench bar was loaded, and Josh is huge. He's probably like 6'6". I think he was close to 400 at his biggest. And I remember counting the weights. There's 7 45-pound plates on each side of the bar. And I'm like, what? Like I've seen that on a leg press like once. And then there's the rubber band, which I had no concept of. And then they set this board on his chest. I was like, what does that thing do? Like, and I remember watching him bench that, and he rammed that weight off that board so fast. I was like my jaw dropped. Like I've never seen anybody lift 135 that fast. So you're talking 675 with 100 pounds, so close to 800 at the top.
Wow.
And he just like made it look like nothing. And I was like, whoa. So I just like avoided those guys. And then it like, years later we circled back, and I finally told him, I was like, dude, I remember you guys scaring the shit out of me. But I was always attracted to that, like the heavy lifting, like the more hardcore side. I like the more extreme. Like when I was growing up, I used to go to hardcore shows, and they'd be like the GMP hall, the UAW hall, like, and the Salvation Army, like just like these little places. And like the more aggressive, I was like, yeah, seeing what I see like on Instagram and social media now, like I don't know that if I was 14 years old now, like getting into fitness and like the stuff I see now online, like I don't know that I would have been attracted to it as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like just that extreme stuff. And I don't know if that will ever go away. And then, as you get stronger, like you just start lifting more, heavier weights, and it's just
there's a rush to it. Because I remember when I got back into lifting after college and everything, and it was like I was lifting with somebody, and they're like, dude, we're just trying to stay in shape. You're trying to lift as heavy as possible. I'm like, it kind of just, there's something about the challenge, I feel like, of pushing yourself a little bit further. Like I want to get that little bit, like I want that number to be higher. Like, cause once you get the one, then it's a new goal that you just set. Like, all right, I know I can do this, but what can I do after this? Like how much more can I go up?
Yeah. And since I stopped competing, it took me a minute to figure out like, how do I transfer this into other areas of my life? Like I'll never bench 700 again, but mentally I'm not there. Like it's more of a mental battle than a physical one. But like so I started mountain biking. So now I do downhill mountain biking. And now it's like, I do little things with the business. Like, okay, if we got, we signed up 3 people, can we sign up 4?
Yeah.
Or, what can we do? Like what metric can we what metric can we focus on this month? You know, get your big goals and then chunk those goals down. And like, it's the same thing. And now for me, now the drive is like, on a personal level, it's like, I need to be a little bit fitter. So now like I'm pushing myself on runs.
Yeah.
Like I run twice a week and I still lift. I lift 3 days a week, but like I said, I'm not going to top those 1 rep maxes. So it's like, I've shifted the focus. Like maybe I'll split squat something, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all, I think it's I hate the word mindset. But it's like a perception of like always just going one, like you said, like just a little bit further. And that's why I really like working with like post athletes. Like you can ask Shelby, I prod her all the time. Like, and I called her out on her shit one time. And
She needs that.
well, there's, you know, when you're an athlete, people are regimented. And the biggest problem is once people aren't athletes anymore, they lose that regiment.
100%.
So
Yeah.
that's, you know, and it's the same. So like, I hate the fact that people think the college 15 or freshman 15, I'm sorry, is like a thing. It's like, no, that's not a thing. Like you don't have to gain 15 pounds when you go to college. You're gaining 15 pounds because you were a 3-sport athlete. And like, you know, that was in practice or games 5 to 6 days a week. And now you're in, like, you don't work out and you're drinking Wednesday through Sunday. What do you think's going to happen? Like, because there's nothing to redirect that energy.
And I feel like a lot of, especially college, like when we're that age, we don't feel like we have to work out because we're still young. We feel like we can keep that body type or that figure that we may want without working out. And like, cause I'm guilty of, I mean, I noticed it in myself now where it's like, like we were talking before we got on air about how work for me is a workout, but also at the same time, my body does not look the way it did when I was in college training 4 or 5 times a week, you know, going to practice and doing all that. And I think people think that just because I'm young and everything, I don't have to, but it catches up to you really quick. I've already started to see it where it's like, you know, what you eat, how many times you drink a week and stuff like that. People think that just because they're young, they can keep that figure.
Yeah, you will, and for a while. Like everything works for a while, and like you can buy some time. But you know, the thing I called Shelby on her shit on was like she was half-assing her business stuff for a while, and everybody does. Mm-hmm. Like everybody gets complacent,
right,
at some point, and like nobody realizes it. I'm like, when you were an athlete, how regimented was your schedule to be a better athlete? And she's like, well, yeah, every second of it. I was like, why aren't you doing that with your business? Like, why aren't you doing that with your life? And that's, you know, having a kid shifted my attitude towards that. Like, I have less tolerance for stuff now. Like, I just really do. Cause, now when my time's with him, like I don't work, my time's with him. Like we took a 3.5 hour nap yesterday afternoon, but the trade-off is I now wake up at 4 every single day. Usually I'm working out by 5 or I'm running, you know, groups twice a week. And it's, you know, I write out my week.
I'm big on that.
There's, you know, I write out the meals we're going to eat. Just cause like I did that stuff when I was competing. Like when I was competing, going into a meet, I knew each of my attempts, what they could be based on how they were going. And by the time I got to the meet, I already knew the next competition I was going to be doing. And like everything was already laid out. And, you know, I had to call myself on my own shit one time. Like, okay, why, you know, oh, you're not that focused on your business and it's not going that well. And this is your fault. Like in that ability to say, like, at some point, if everything around you is not going well, you have to be honest with yourself and realistic enough to go, I'm the common denominator. Like maybe it's not everyone around me. Maybe it's not, you know, the economy. Maybe it's not what, you know, everyone thinks the new business opening up is like why their business is tanking. And it's like, no, there's a common denominator and it's you.
Yeah. It's really hard to look yourself in the mirror and be like, I am the reason for my own setbacks right now. Like that, like, everybody's so quick anymore, especially today, to point fingers. I mean, I feel like it's always been that way. Everybody's so quick to point fingers of, or not even necessarily at someone, but because of this circumstance or this and that. It's always something else. It's never yourself. But being able to look yourself in the mirror and realize, like, all right, like you said, I'm the common denominator here. Like, that is something that is huge and hard to do, but it's very beneficial once you do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I was talking to a client the other day, and it's like the people that complain about social media the most, I guarantee if you look at their cell phone, there's at least 2 or 3 hours a day on social media.
Right.
Like, and, you know, people are like, well, you probably have to use it all the time for your business. I'm like, I don't know. I post a couple things here and there, but like,
being able to have the self-control of opening the app, making the post, you don't have to sit there and scroll for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You can close the app.
Like, yeah, I mean, I'll watch mountain bike videos, but like, it doesn't ruin my life.
Right.
And the power and the habit of consistency is such a, because you're gonna be consistent in something. Like, you're consistently gonna drink every night, or you're not. Like, I would say a top 3 game changer in my adult life was my wife calling me on my shit. And I was like, man, I can't lose weight, and I feel like shit when I wake up, and da 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 da. She's like, what? Well, you go to bed at a different time every single night. So I gave myself a sleep schedule.
Really?
I go to bed, so every day, I'm asleep by 10 p.m., like no later than 10, and I wake up at 4.
I was going to say, is setting the time to go to bed make it easier to wake up at the time you want?
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm bad about that because I don't go to bed at the same time every single night. And I use the excuse of, well, I'm editing a video or I'm working on the podcast. And sometimes I'm not downstairs in the basement working on things till 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it is 9 o'clock that I'm like, all right, I'm done. But, and it's, some of it's too, procrastinating of, I need to get this done. And then all of a sudden, instead of doing a little bitty throughout the week, all right, I have 3 hours to get this edited because it's coming out tomorrow. Yeah. So doing that, but how important has that been, and how much has that changed, the aspect of things of, having that sleep schedule?
So I'll say this, like, especially with our kid, I said Thursday I was home by like 10:30 or something in the morning. And that sounds wild to people, like, well, you're home by 10:30. Like, how hard can your day be? Like, well, my day started at 4.
Yeah.
And like, so I woke up, worked for an hour and a half, like on my computer. Or no, I worked for an hour, came in, ran 3 hours of groups. I worked out, like, then I did a couple more hours of work. So you're talking 5 hours of work and a workout. That's a pretty good day. Yeah. And then hung out with my kid for like 3 or 4 hours. I'm lucky, I bring my kid in here. So we were training Lakewood softball. I brought my kid in, and he's in his stroller, and I'm training groups, work for a couple more hours, and, that's my day. Like, so my day can be done by noon.
Right.
My work day.
Yeah.
So, and at some point you get to a point where, like, our gym will always have work to be done. Mm-hmm. So what I did, something I've become better about this last year is, like, on this day, I'm going to make my content for next week. On this day, I'm going to touch base with former clients. On this day, I'm checking in with current clients. Like, when you do that and you break those tasks into chunks, it's a lot easier than going, oh my gosh, I got to check in with old clients. I got to check in with new clients. I got 3 people who called me that want training. Oh my, I got to make a social media post today. I don't know what to post. Like, instead of doing all that, just being like, this is my hour, I'm working on social media. This is my hour, I'm working. Like, I love to write. Writing to me is like one of the most relaxing, and it helps me gather my thoughts. Maybe it happens for you when you're doing podcasts and editing. That's not me, but when I write, I can, like, sit and think. Like, if I'm trying to work through a situation with a client, like, how can, like, say I'm trying to teach them a technique on their lift and it's not clicking, what I'll do is I'll go home that day and I'll write it out and think of, like, here's 3 ways I could explain it to this client, and then, like, sort of work them through that. Just breaking if nothing's important, or how is it? If nothing's important, everything's important, if that makes sense. So just saying, like, at this time, I'm writing my blog for the week, or at this time, I'm creating my social media. At this time, you know, we program for all our clients, like, so that, you know, all the programs got to get up.
Yeah.
And those are different. Like, I hate the thought of multitasking. Like, everyone's like, I'm a great multitasker. Like, no, you suck at everything. Like, and I know because I did it. Like, I lived that. And just being able, Dave Tate told me, we went out to Elite and hung out with him. I took our coaches out there, I think the week before our kid was born. I was like, dude, you got any, getting advice from people about having a kid, like, from the perspective of a small business owner, not many people have that experience. So, like, that was the only thing I was ever worried about, like, having a kid. Is like, dude, you know, for 10 years, I just ran the gym 20 hours a day. That's not possible now. Like, I can't be here at 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. every day anymore. And they said, dude, I wouldn't even worry about it. He's like, you're going to get twice as much done in half the time. And I was like, oh, that's stupid. And I would say it was 100% accurate.
Really?
Yeah. Like I said, when I'm with him, like, I don't do anything. Like, that's just, and I view it as like, that's time, like, that's time that we'll probably never get back. You know, that's, he's only going to be this big for however long. So, like, is my social media post really that important that I'm going to, you know, and if, like, do I really need to be in the gym, or do I want to be in the gym? Like, is it helping me? Is it helping our family? Like, it's just, it shifted what's important to me. Yeah.
Well, and like, I like that you said, is a social media that posts that really that important. Here's the thing that I think a lot of people take for granted when it comes to, you know, business and, you know, social media. I mean, it's a great tool, but I think a lot of people don't understand the fact of, if you don't post that social media post, no one's going to know.
Yeah.
Literally no one's going to know. And no one's sitting there waiting for you to post. Like, I guarantee, I mean, hopefully you don't have any weird stalkers, but I guarantee you no one's sitting there, like, refreshing your feed, waiting for you to post. Like, that's not what, I think people get so worked up if I have to make this post and that kind of thing, instead of, like, it can wait kind of thing. It doesn't have to be done right this second.
Well, and something I don't know, like, I don't know other industries super well. Like, I tell people, like, I know the gym industry. Like, I have been around the gym world, like I said, I've been working out over 20 years now. Been involved in, like, strength conditioning and private sector business for 15 years. And the biggest problem is everyone's focused on the clients they don't have, and they forget about the clients they do have.
Ooh.
Like,
that's good. And that's in a lot of different industries as well. That's not just in, you know, fitness. It's the same. I mean, even in our world of installing pools and patios, when you can't forget about your past clients, because you still have to do work for them, just at different times. It's just, you're not there for 2 weeks at their house talking to them every day. Right.
And I mean, I just, you know, one of the things I really pride myself on is, like, we have clients, like I said, I've worked with the one kid, 15 years now. Like, for me, like, a client working with me, a short-term client, would be like 2 years. Okay. And industry average is like 7 months. So, you know, I've worked with Shelby since she was 15. I think she's 27 now, so that's 12 years. Like, there's been clients here since I opened the doors. Wow. So there's not, and I, you know, to a fault, like, maybe I should do more social media. Maybe I don't know. I don't give a shit. Like, we'll grow one client a month for every month we're open. And, like, you know, something when I first opened, I wanted to, like, I had to be better than every other facility. And I needed every person that wanted a personal trainer, I had to train them. And now I'm like, dude, I don't have time for that shit. Like, we can only train so many people. Right. We only have so many coaches on staff. Like, so what's the all we need to do is do the best job we can do with the people in front of us. And then guess what? Those people tell their friends, and, like, you're getting word of mouth referrals from people that, like, are already your awesome clients. Like, I mean, look at Shelby. I know Shelby pushes a lot of her athletes towards you because like, she went through it, and that goes as a testament too of doing a good job with that. Like, and that's where, if you focus, like you said, on the ones that you have, it can lead to more in the future, because you may not train somebody for
their entire life. It's most likely not going to happen. Like you'll train them for, like you said, maybe a long time, but eventually there's going to come a point where life changes. Maybe they move or stuff like that to where you're not training them anymore. But building that relationship with your current client is more important sometimes than bringing in the new ones.
Yep. Yeah.
Is it like, would you rather, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but like, would you rather have a new client every 7 months or stick with one client for 7 years?
Yeah.
So
it's not
like
even close.
Having the longevity of that relationship, it leads to more things on the other side of it anyway.
Yeah. And that's, another thing I think gym owners and trainers get in a bad trap of is like, Black Friday's coming up and they're like, oh, Black Friday, personal training is like 50% off. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I can only train so many hours in a day. Like, I cannot train more hours. There was a time we lost 2 coaches in the same week. One got a new job out of state and the other had a illness. So my training hours went up to like 12 sessions a day, 4 to 5 days a week. And it got to the point like I couldn't even hire anybody because I didn't have time in the day.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to hire somebody? And we did hire somebody, and I was like, she was awesome. I was like, hey, you got that group down there? Like, hope you got it together. Like, that was the wildest thing. But yeah, I mean, my goal is just to never lose a client.
Right.
And you mentioned like Shelby sending some of her girls here. That was never a marketing play.
Right.
Like, it was never like, I'm going to do good with you because you're good at softball. So then like, you're going to send me clients. Right. And I remember I asked some of our clients, I'm like, when I was training Amer and his buddy Morgan, who was trying to make Team USA at the time for wrestling. And I was like, how would you train them differently than some of the other athletes you're training? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, how would you treat them differently as they're prepping for the Olympics and these international competitions compared to the 12-year-old playing baseball, playing softball? And they're like, whoa, I think maybe you do this and do that. And I'm like, the answer is no, there's no difference. Just because they're a higher level athlete doesn't mean they get special care or this person gets shit on. Like, everyone that walks in the door, and this is something I think trainers forget about a lot. And it's easy when you're running like 10 sessions a day. Like, to be like, oh my gosh, another session. But something I always remind myself of is like, for you, it's another session. It's another hour. For that person, it might be the hour of their day. Like, that might be the highlight of their day. So imagine you walk in somewhere and you're like super stoked to see somebody, and they're like, oh, you showed up. Like, dude, you just took the wind out of that dude's sails for the rest of their life. Right. So you have, you can't, there's times I put our coaches on the spot and didn't tell them. Dave Tate from Elite FTS came out here. And I didn't tell our coaches that were running groups, like, hey, be on edge because Dave's coming out. And, there was times Lou came out and I didn't tell our coaches because I didn't want them to like start running their groups differently. So that's always something I ask, like, how would you, if you're working with somebody of a higher level, or maybe they're a big successful business owner, whatever it is, everyone's on an equal playing field. Or, our coaching just needs to be good enough that no matter who walks in here, they know that we're legit. Yeah. And that's, one of the kids we trained, Simon Perini, his dad, Greg Perini, is the Denison swim coach, winning a swim program, I think, in NCAA history. It just got announced this week. He's getting inducted in the D3 College Hall of Fame. Wow. We train his kid. And if there's anybody that could critique us, like, it's him. And, like, you guys, like, pick his brain. Right. Like, he's not here to judge you. Like, he trusts you with his kid. And obviously, Simon's like 20 years old now, so he doesn't come in anymore. But he's, still, I look at everyone as a resource. And I think the best part of what I do is we get to learn from our clients. Like, we have clients that, they have multiple businesses. We have other clients that have sports success. And you touched on it earlier, like with the podcast, like you get to learn from people. Like I feel it's hysterical to me because people are like, oh my gosh, you changed my life. I'm like, we lift weights. But like the stuff that they teach me, I'm like, dude, like this is wild. Like you guys just tell me everything.
Yeah.
Like
whether it's business, fitness, family, like there's all different, everybody can teach you some type of lesson, whether it's through a good way or a bad way.
Yeah.
That's what I think a lot of people, they try to look for that mentor, which it's very important to find a good mentor, but you're also going to have those, what you thought was going to be a mentor and they just didn't end up. But guess what? You can learn something from everybody, good or bad.
Yeah. I've been thinking about the mentor thing a lot here lately for multiple reasons. So like I said, I've been very lucky with who I've been around, and I didn't pay to be at Westside. Big Josh, I never paid him to help me. I'd buy him dinner like at a competition or something, but Coach Watts, like I never paid to be around these people. And like I have a business mentor now, and she's another person that's like helped change my life. And mentors are tough because like you said, sometimes you think like this person's going to be the person to like, and not everyone is a good mentor.
Right.
And not everyone is as focused. Like it's hard to find somebody with a non-biased point of view.
Right.
And finding like your wife, your significant other, whatever, your best friend. Like I got people I reach out to that I know they'll tell me the answer I want to hear. And then there's other people I know when I reach out to them, I'm like, oh man, they might tell me something I don't want to hear.
Right.
So both of those, having a real mentor, not somebody to pat you on the ass, goes a long way.
Right. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to also touch on something because you mentioned that you like to write, and going through your Instagram and everything, every caption is honestly like I highly recommend following you just because it's almost like that little bit of motivation that you may need. If you're sometimes in the mornings, especially like it's a little slow start to the day, and you read something, and it kind of can help give you that little extra push. And one of the things I wanted to talk on is one of your posts. It says, we expect our kids to take time for themselves to become a better version of themselves, but we don't take 4 hours a week to take care of our health. Can we really expect them to learn to take care of themselves if the example we set sucks?
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to, I'm not going to put you on the spot with this per se, but like, do you ever have those clients that, the kids are in here training, but the parents, you look at them and maybe they're a little critical of their kid and like try to push them so hard, but they don't even take care of themselves. I feel like that's somewhat common because I see it with, I won't say it much more on that where I see it and everything, but I've seen it, and it's like, kind of how do you go about that, I guess, as a trainer?
We just try to have conversations. Everything's conversations. And I will never criticize somebody for not working out. I don't understand it, but that's my background. But they, I just remind them if somebody says something, one, I don't think people should ever talk negatively about their kid, especially if their kid's right there. Your kid will 1000% buy into whatever you say, especially as a parent.
Right.
So if you go, well, my kid's slow, he'll never be fast. Yeah, probably not.
Yep.
Look at what you're feeding him. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So, but those conversations come up, so we train, the thing about Showtime, I tell people, is like, we train youth athletes and their families to be stronger. Because we have people two of our longest term clients is one of the first kids I trained and his dad. His dad's been here since like we were open for 4 or 5 months. So you're talking 11 years he's been here. You just can't expect your kids to do something that you're not willing to show.
Right.
Like, there's every family has like their the common things that they do.
Right.
Like some families, alcoholism's a big thing. Other families, drug addiction's a big thing. Other families are addicted to like starting businesses. Like those are all comfort things.
Right.
So, that's just having conversations with people and being like, your kid's here. We have an adult group at the same time. Like,
Ooh,
just
that's a smart play there. That's a smart business move there too, and it's a perfect play because of the fact of like, hey, your kid's getting work in, you can too.
Yeah.
And also that will help motivate your kid at the exact same time.
Yeah. So that's something we really, we train athletes, but I always say like, I want your kid to be a better athlete. I want them to be a better person though.
Yeah.
Because again, like I said earlier, like they're not going to be athletes forever.
Right.
And the dad of the kid who I still train, both of them, I'll never forget meeting him for the first time. He's like, my kid's not going to be in the NFL. I don't expect him to be a middle linebacker. I just want him to have more confidence. And that comes back to what I said about strength being the most important thing. Like, I've seen strength make people overcome drug addiction, suicidal thoughts, anything you can think of, eating disorders. Like I've seen getting stronger change that, and that's why I think it's the most important thing. But yeah, just having the conversation, or if like a parent's in here and they're like, man, my knees hurt, I'm like, maybe I show them a few things like, hey, stay 5 minutes after your kid's group is done, I'll show you something. And just always being a helping hand instead of criticizing. And that's something I got from Lou because, being at Westside, like Westside got criticized a lot online. And one of the coolest things I got to see was people that were criticized or had criticized Westside in the past started coming to Westside to be like, oh, my back is injured. How do I fix my back? Or this, like, and he never said, well, you wrote that article about me, you're not allowed here. He'd just go, hey, this is what you do. And oh my gosh, like fixed. So like, I never criticize a parent for, most parents are tired.
You're right.
Most parents are tired and their job and their career is their focus. Like, and like you even alluded to, like, it's easy to let go of that stuff.
Yep.
So just always, we've been creating a lot of free guides and free resources, and that's part of why I do the social media stuff, is just to put stuff out there. Like I try to make a Facebook post almost every day, and I don't always put it on Instagram, and it's just like a helping hand. And like you were talking about, like some of the stuff I post, and people have been like, you're a really positive person. I'm like, I don't feel like I am. I do think like, you get a choice every day, and your choice is you can wake up and be a piss pants about everything, or like you get to determine your attitude.
Right.
Like, and whatever outlook you put on that day. And I've been that person, man. I've been that person that was like, I hate everyone. Everyone hates me. Everyone's out to get me. Like, I got a chip on my shoulder. And once you get over yourself and realize, like, nobody cares about you. Nobody wants to do you harm. And maybe people do, but I'm saying for the most part,
Yes.
I do believe for the most part, people are good. Like, I don't think people are nearly as bad as, we just got through the election, so everyone can take their yard signs down for a few more years. I don't think anybody is nearly as evil on any spectrum as anybody wants them to be. And I'll tell you, this is my third year, and probably a lot of people listening to this won't even know I do this. I'm a man of many lives. My wife got me to teach PE. I go to this school twice a week. It's called My Place to Be. It's here in Newark. So it's a school that they specialize in kids with autism and developmental delays. So I had no experience in that leading up to that, and it's been one of the biggest life-changing experiences because you see kids that have like real struggles, and like I've seen the difference that physical activity has made in them. And the lady that runs the school's like, kids have shown up to school more, their grades are improved, and the only difference is PE. because they didn't have
Wow.
PE before the year I got there. And like some of the kids that are there, like they have real struggles. Like they have, and I'm not going to get into details about some of the
Yeah.
family struggles, but like it just puts it into perception. Like when you talk about like, let's say kids in travel sports, like, oh, I need a new bat. My bat broke. Like that's not a problem.
No.
That's a luxury.
Right.
Like, oh, my hitting instructor changed my time. Like, dude, seriously, like, that experience has shifted my perception.
A lot of
like,
people don't know what true struggle is.
Yeah.
And I mean, me myself, like, you know, we all have done it ourselves where we think it's like, oh, this is the end of the world. But at the same time, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Now, I heard something on another podcast. I can't remember what it was, but it was, he was talking about it, and he goes, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like it's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Now, there's always, you know, levels to it when you start comparing to other people's struggles.
Yeah. Yeah. That was something Dave Tate told me when I started the gym. I was like, you got any advice? He's like, dude, something's always going to happen. And he's like, in 5 years from now, the things that like ruin your day will not even peg your radar. I was like, that's sort of a dick thing to say. Like, this is a big deal to me. And I can't explain how accurate that is.
Mhm.
Like, and what's a trouble now will not be a trouble later because you'll have that experience. You'll hopefully will have learned from it.
Right, exactly. Because like as a business owner, you're essentially putting out fires all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's what you do as a business owner. But like you said, as you get further down, that fire, you've put it out 100 times already, so you know exactly how to handle it.
Yeah, and I think as your business life matures, you know, you have to pick your battles.
Right.
Like I said, when nothing's important, everything's important. And like I don't, like I said, let's say a new gym opens up, I don't care. Like, well, they got better equipment than you. I got the equipment. I don't care about like.
Gyms are going to open up constantly.
Yeah, and people are like, "Are you worried about online training?" I'm like, I don't care. Like we coach, and like I tell people we're not a gym, we're a coaching facility, or a coaching business, whatever you want to call it. And you know, I write stuff on Facebook all the time and post stuff on my Instagram story just to like try to get people's head spinning a little bit. Like,
Right.
oh, I never thought of it that way. That's free. So like that's free. Then like everything's a tier.
Right.
So then if you want coaching, like, all right, coaching's going to get a little more pricey. Like, and you know, there's so many different business models. And I think as your business career matures, you just understand having a better understanding of what you're doing and what you're providing and the ability to block out the rest. Like for a while, I remember everyone was putting out like downloadable programs. Like, and it ranged from like $5 for a program to like $75 for a program. And people are like, oh, I'm selling like 100 programs a month or 1,000 programs a month. I don't think you can give away programs online right now.
No.
Like it's changed that much.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I didn't go down that business
Right.
model, you know, or apparel. A bunch of gyms were doing like apparel and like online personas, like, oh, buy our t-shirts. And like, I don't know anybody that got rich, like that didn't have a base of being awesome at what they do, buy t-shirts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I know, I always joke, you know, Westside Barbell sold the same t-shirt for like 30 years. They were the best in the world at their thing. So that's like the t-shirt was a byproduct of being the best in the world.
Yeah.
Like if, you know, and I just heard somewhere, I forget where it was. They said, like if you're a personal trainer or a gym owner, you need to be 3 mile famous. You need to be famous like within 3 miles. And that's it. And like you think about it, like if you trained everybody that lives within 3 miles of your gym,
Yeah.
that's a lot of people.
Right.
That's probably more than you can handle.
Right.
Like you don't have the systems in place to handle more than that many people. So how can you provide value to all of those people? And everyone's trying to win the internet. Like everyone, again, I don't know how many followers I have. I don't.
It's
really.
such a crowded space that honestly, it's impossible to win it anyway.
Yeah, but like you're trying to win the internet, you can't win your city.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you can't win your 3 miles.
Yeah. Your 3 miles is way more important than the millions of people that are on social media or whatever.
Yeah. So that, it all ties back to like just taking care of the people you have in front of you. That's done more for our gym. People ask me about like marketing funnels and this and that. I'm like, I don't know. We just, that period of time where we lost 2 coaches in the span of a week, I just fell back on our coaching. Like, and one of the most humbling experiences of my life was before our kid was born. Like we did a small like family and like close friends baby shower. And we didn't want to have like a big baby shower where, oh, clients, you have to come and buy us gifts. And like, we didn't want to do that. And one of my clients was like, when are you going to do a baby shower here? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why would I do? Well, your clients want to do stuff for you guys. I'm like, no. And it was the most humbling thing. Just seeing, like, they end up putting it together here. So it was 2 of my clients, the coach, the girl that used to work here, and then my sister, and they put it together like in a night. And I came in to work out that Friday, and like the gym, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is a whole, like they stayed like till like 10 p.m. on a Thursday night and like decorated the gym, and I'm like, jeez, okay, like. And we were here Friday night for the baby shower, and like I was like, I don't get moved to tears very often, but I was like, this is like, dude, we had people showing up that haven't been members here in years, like, and like people just hung out. And I said to one client that helped organize, I'm like, I did not expect this. She's like, I don't think you guys understand what you do for people. I'm like, well, probably not. But like, you guys also pay us.
Yeah.
And it was that all stuff like that always reminds me, like, we're doing something special. It's not about having the best athletes. It's not about having the strongest people or I always joke if you come in here, like, it's not a Fitspo gym. Like, people have their clothes on. Like, nobody's, nobody's filming their workouts, and nobody's got their headphones in. Like, everyone's just working out together. And there's times where, my wife might be working with special needs kids in here. She's a physical therapist. And, I might be working with a 70-year-old, and there might be athletes training and our adult group training. Like, that all sort of coexist under one roof. And it's like cool because you see some of those special needs kids and our athletes, like, they're blending in and like they're communicating with each other, and to see that, like, that doesn't happen everywhere.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff that always keeps me wanting to, fight the good fight.
One of the things I wanted to ask you was in terms of, kids training, when do you think is the right age to start training? And I mean training as in maybe just like agility and that, but also like the lifting side of things, because that's one of the things, that's kind of almost debated a little bit of when is the right time for kids to start lifting. So do you have any thoughts on it?
I don't even think it's debatable. Like, honestly, I just always refer to the ACSM theory on that. And that's as soon as, if they're old enough and mature enough to participate in organized sports, and they can train. That doesn't mean put a bar on their back,
right,
and take a squat max, but training could mean balancing on one leg. Training can mean hopping. Training can mean doing cartwheels. Training can mean throwing a med ball, like obstacle courses, body weight movements, kinesthetic awareness. That's all training.
Right.
Deadlifting a med ball, deadlifting a kettlebell, like it's training. So how old can they train? I don't care. Like, right. 2. Like, if your kid can play sports, they can work out. I don't know what. And when I was growing up, there was like 14 was the number. Looking back, it's the most baffling thing that there was just like a random number Like, oh, you can start strength training at this age. And any younger, you'll close your growth plates. But as soon as you turn 14, it just shows that there's no consideration for the maturation process. And the fact, like, I don't know if I hit puberty until I was like 17, because I was like 150 pounds, like going into my senior year or something. Then all of a sudden I was like 200, and I went from like, I couldn't run in a straight line. I couldn't jump up. And then I remember senior year was the first time I could dunk a basketball. So that's, I was working out that whole time. It's not like my workouts got that much better. I remember going, I was deadlifting like 135, and then one day I was like deadlifting like 275 for reps. Like, that's the power of puberty. So my point with that is, like, there is no magical age. There's kids we won't train at certain times, like if they're not mature enough to handle the training. Because, gyms are dangerous. Like, we got bars everywhere and plates, and there's a lot of stuff to get hurt on. We actually just redesigned the gym a little bit to make like an open space area, because we do have like some younger kids. So we wanted like a bigger open space to alleviate that problem. But yeah, everyone should be training.
I agree. And that's actually another question. Like, what is something that anybody right now, whatever age, because we're getting into that point of the year where people are going to start making New Year's resolutions and things like that, which I'll go into a little bit more off of this question. But what's something right now that everybody can be doing to be just a little bit healthier, no matter what age?
Walk.
Really? Okay.
Walk. And there's things that, like I said, we make money from coaching, and most of the stuff I post on social media, I can't monetize. I can't make money if you go on a walk. I can't make money if you decide to drink one less drink a night, but it will change your life.
Right.
When I stopped competing in powerlifting, I was 309.5. I remember that because like I almost had to lift as a super heavyweight for my last meet. And my buddy Bruce was like, "Dude, you are fat." And I was like, "I know. I thought I was gonna make 308." But my doctor / friend Dan Fossman, I had sort of developed a plan with him, and then I was like, I'm gonna do this meet, and I'm done. Like, I'm done competing. And I had sleep apnea at the time, and my doctor was like, "You gotta get a CPAP." Like, my hands were going to sleep all the time. My back was locked up all the time. My feet were numb half the time. Like, I had to lose weight. It was just when I had the sleep study done, they said I stopped breathing like 127, 128 times a night.
Wow.
Yeah, when you get like that big and that broad and that thick neck, like, it looks cool, but it's like a different thing. And so I was 309.5, and I was like, "All right, Dan, like, I'm done competing. What do you want me to do?" And he's like, "I just want you to be aware of what you're eating." Like, he didn't say go do keto diet. He didn't say go do carnivore, do this or do that. He's like, "I just want you to be aware." And he's like, "Just think about stopping eating once you're not hungry." Like, okay, what about working out? He's like, "Just go on a walk every day." Okay. I did that and lost, like, between not force feeding and walking, I think I lost like 20 pounds, like, pretty quickly, like quicker than I would hope somebody to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
But for me to be over 300 pounds when I was competing, it was like work. Like, somebody asked me one day, like, how many calories do you think you took in a day? I'm like, I don't know, probably like 3,000 or 4,000. And then I counted it up after I was done competing. It was like 2,000 calories of snacks a day.
Wow.
Just between like Gatorades and peanut butter and jellies and bananas and just anything with calories. Like, that's what I was taking in. But man, walking is the miracle drug that nobody wants to take. It helps with mental health. It helps with your spine. It helps with your hips. It helps with your ankles. We're really lucky. Our backyard's the Denison Bioreserve, so we have like 350 acres of walking trails in our backyard. So, going back there, getting our dogs out. If everyone would walk like 10 minutes at a time, I think people would be amazed at the difference it would make. So that's the one thing. Like if somebody's doing nothing, just go on a 10-minute walk.
Right.
And then if that's easy, do it like 2 times a day. If that's easy, do it 3 times a day, whatever. But yeah, people are like, well, I'm not ready to work out. I don't do anything. I'm like, oh yeah. Like we're here to help if you are, but if not, just go on a walk. And I still, like I walked my dogs 2.5 miles this morning. That's the one thing that I wish everyone would do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just starting with a walk is a huge thing. I know somebody that I actually went to school with. He, I believe, ended up getting, close, if not over 500 pounds. And, finally it was during COVID. I think he finally just had enough. Now, he wasn't outside walking. He posted videos of kind of his story, and how it started is he would walk around his house.
Yeah.
And just walk around, and he'd do it, multiple times a day. And then it got to the point where he's outside walking, and now he's running. And like, it's just that what walking can lead to, whether it's a weight loss journey or just staying healthy in general, it's a very beneficial thing.
Yeah. And I think what you just laid out, describing your buddy, that's really the message I'm trying to get through right now. Because right now, what people are bombarded with is like, they got to do this. You got to do carnivore. It's the only diet. You got to do Ozempic. You got to do this. And like the thing that you can do that's the easiest is so much more than you've been doing. Like it's whatever, make the easiest change you can. Whatever the easiest thing. Like if for you, walking around your house is what gets you moving. Walk around your house. If you have stairs in your house, that's like a huge bonus.
Yeah.
If you haven't worked out in 10 years, going from 0 workouts over the span of 10 years to 5 days a week, you are going to hate your life so fast. And that's when we get new clients. Like I try to be like, your goal the first month is 10 workouts. And people are like, well, I want to lose 10 pounds. I'm like, I know, but if you can't get 10 workouts in, like this is the base. This is your foundation.
Right.
10 workouts is about 2 workouts a week. That's all we need. Then we can worry about like, you're probably just by working out twice a week, you're probably going to like not eat ice cream that night. You're probably going to have a healthier meal. So we're getting the workouts in, and you're probably going to have like some lean protein, and maybe you even take a protein supplement. So like that's, you call that habit stacking.
Yeah.
So now you're habit stacking, and you don't really there's minimal effort.
Right.
So that, like what your buddy described is that everyone should just do that.
Right.
Do I love it when people are like, hey, I want to start my health and fitness journey, and like I'm coming to you? Like, yeah, that's awesome. But if you're not there, you're not there. Like, I just want people healthier.
Right.
So that's my goal.
What are your thoughts on New Year's resolutions? Because it is a huge thing. Every New Year's there's usually a lot. Like that's one of the biggest New Year's resolutions every single year is weight loss and, fitness in general. What are your thoughts on them? And first off,
so our gym has never been like everyone's always shocked when I say this. We've never had a huge influx after the first year. Never, really? Ever. No. I don't think we've ever had a sign up just because of New Year's resolutions.
Okay.
I think people, New Year's resolutions are fine. I think everyone should audit themselves and their habits. I prefer on a quarterly basis instead of annual. I think people should have goals.
Right.
Like, I think most people do a poor job of creating goals, and they do a even worse job of chunking them down into manageable steps. Saying I want to lose 50 pounds sounds really exciting. Losing 50 pounds is not that exciting. And, you ask somebody like, how long would they give themselves to lose 50 pounds? Everyone wants to lose 50 pounds in 2 months. And it's like, what if you lost 50 pounds over the span of 2 years? And that's, homeostasis is a real thing. So whatever you're comfortable with, that's what you're comfortable with. and you can't out trick your body.
Right.
So, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm 260, so that's 50 pounds. And I've been 10 pounds lighter than I currently am. And it's been 4 years since I stopped competing. So that's, call it 10, 12 pounds a year. That's not that much. So that's essentially 1 pound a month over the span of 4 years. But the ease of how I've done it, like I still drink my beer. I still eat ice cream. I've never been on a diet. It's just, I give myself time. I didn't get up over 300 pounds overnight. So I don't, it's, if people want to do New Year's resolutions, it's fine. I think people should have somebody to be accountable to for those resolutions. And I think people need to talk. If they have a spouse, they need to talk. Whoever like that person is in their life that they're going to be around the most. It's really hard to go at stuff on your own. And we talked about like having mentors earlier. Like even when I was competing, it took other people for me to believe I could do these other things. If somebody, when I was squatting 500, would have been like, you're going to take a run at 1,000-pound squat. Like, yeah, okay, crazy person. But when you have somebody that's like, no, I've done it. And I think a good mentor, their goal, like a common goal is people like want to be a millionaire. When you have $0 to your name, becoming a millionaire sounds like the most overwhelming thing. But when you talk to people that have done it, like a good mentor is like, their goal is to get you there faster. And, same with weight loss, same with getting stronger, same with athletic performance. One of my like ultimate joys is like seeing people, like I was never a good sport athlete. I was a good strength athlete, but like football, I was not good at football. Basketball, I was not good at basketball. So seeing the kids we work with, like I went to 2 college signings in the last 2 weeks, like, and those kids are far better at their sport than I ever could have been at the sports I did. That's the goal of the coach, is to get people the results faster than they could have, or get them to exceed what they were able to do, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the big thing, is finding somebody to help hold you accountable. But like, cause it's very easy to, like, if I set a goal and nobody else knows that goal, it's really a lot easier to give up on that goal kind of thing. Now, if you're working out with a buddy and you don't show up, your buddy's probably going to give you crap and probably going to make it a little bit harder. And it's also going to be a little bit harder for you not to go, because you're not letting just yourself down. You're letting somebody else down at the same time.
I think one of the best things I've done over the last 5 years is I feel like I have a team of people. I think everybody should have these people in their corner. I have a psychologist. I have a financial person. I have a business person. I have my doctor. Something else. I have a PT, but that's my wife. So like, I don't get injured, or if I do get injured, like she has me fixed in like no time. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like somebody for health, somebody for your mind, somebody for your finances, somebody for your big goals. Like having that team of people, and yeah, you might have to pay them. Like, yeah, that's fine. Like, yeah. I don't work for free, and it will change everything in your life. Like, there's stuff my financial person's showed me. I'm like, oh, I never looked at it that way. And like, there's been times where I was like, oh my gosh, like, the gym is just like doing terrible. Like, what in the world is going on? And my business mentor's like, dude, look at this. Like, you're missing. So I fall victim to the same stuff our clients fall victim to. Like, instead of not losing weight fast enough, I'm like, oh, we're missing our growth. Like, we should be hitting these metrics faster. And like, well, and again, there's building blocks to everything. And I think everyone wants, here's the prize, eyes on the prize. There's levels, and you don't know the issues to get to those levels yet. And that's just having that team, I think, changes everything.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that there's 4 pillars to health. There's mental health, spiritual health, financial health, and physical health. Like those are the 4 pillars. And everybody has different weights on those pillars in their life. But those are like, if you focus on those 4 pillars of your health, like that can help create a lot. And like it's kind of like you said, you have all those type of people in your corner. It's important to have those because it just kind of helps. When you don't see, you're not going to be able to balance everything just by yourself. So when you don't see something like that business person being like, you're missing something. So it's good to have those, not even just mentors, but just people in your corner that you can talk to, whether, like you said, whether you got to pay them or not. It's good to have all of those in your corner.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much nailed it with the 4 pillars of health. That's something I follow, and it's not always, distributed 25%
Right.
evenly. Everything is seasonal.
Yep.
There's times where I don't focus on some stuff and then I bring it back in and I reevaluate. And, there's periods where the gym needs more of my attention
Yep.
than, others. Like we're heading into like one of our busier seasons. So like I know that my attention for the next 2 months, like I know where it's at. And back to like the goals and stuff, like, we're doing our 2025 planning, and I do that for, both the gym and our coaches and my wife and I personally, like, and the team always reels me back in.
Well, I got one final question for you, and it's a question that I like to ask all of my guests, and it is, if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
It's interesting. Like I said earlier, I'm doing what I wanted to do at 16. Probably have more confidence. That's like the biggest detriment to our business has been my level of confidence over time, and like just being passive. And it's not until like getting over those hurdles that, I've got clients that knew my confidence was lacking at times. And it's like, dude, you can do this. Like, it's everyone's a little bit self-absorbed. So I see it more in myself. And then as I've gotten older, I see it with some of our clients. A lot of people are afraid to take their chance.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, when I opened this gym, I was just young and dumb. So I wasn't aware of like, I didn't have kids then. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have responsibilities.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if I could tell my 16-year-old self anything, it'd be like, just have the confidence, keep steering the ship. Like, don't, just keep doing the thing. And I sort of have lived that, so I'm lucky in that regards. Yeah, just keep doing the thing.
Well, Nick, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been an awesome episode. There was a lot more that we could have dove into, but just for time's sake, maybe we'll do another one and dive into some other stuff. But where can people find and follow you on social media and find your gym and everything like that?
Yeah, you can look me up on Facebook, Nick Showman, or Instagram, Showtime Strength, on everything. And yeah. That's about it.
I'll have the links to all that posted in the episode description. But until next time, you guys know the deal. Life is hard, and it's going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out.